Hey you! Yeah, you. Ever thought of playing Castlevania on your Nokia phone? Well, now you can. In fact, you could for a long time now. Castlevania has had multiple Java-based mobile titles, going all the way back to the early 2000s, and this one, Order of Shadows, is especially noteworthy for having its own story. Order of Shadows is a really shitty, non-canon Castlevania game released in 2007. It supposedly takes place in the late 1600s, around the time of Simon, which is why I'm talking about it now. The protagonist here, though, is Desmond Belmont, this red-headed freak with Saiyan hair, about which we know literally nothing. He and his sisters, Zoe and Dolores, are the current descendants of the Belmont clan and responsible for unearthing the activities of the Order, a mysterious cult who has murdered their parents. The Order is led by Rohan Cross, and its stated goal is to bring back Count Dracula through a ritual of some kind. This is akin to how Dracula was brought back in Simon's time in the canon timeline. In fact, I've seen people theorize that Desmond could be Simon's father, since they both have redhead designs. I don't feel too strongly about this theory. I mean, Desmond isn't even canon, he was never meant to be, so I don't really care. Anyways, the objective of the three siblings is to pursue the Order and stop it from resurrecting Dracula, and that's as deep as it goes. And as you're about to see, the game is also rather shallow. So of course, we have to acknowledge that this is a Nokia game. You can't expect Nokia games to be the best thing in the world. The screen size sucks, even in the emulator I was using. For some reason, I couldn't make the screen wider than it was tall because it's a phone, so I had to play around a lot with the settings until I got a resolution that was sort of comfortable, but still not that good. The controls suck balls. I was playing this on keyboard, which I'm not used to doing, but even then, it doesn't excuse it. Everything feels sluggish and clunky, jumping is weird, and for some reason every time you land you have to let go of the forward key and then press it again to keep walking. What? And then finally, of course, the game has no sound effects. It has music, and the music is okay for what the game is, but otherwise it's completely silent, not even a whip crack. And all of this, of course, is partially thanks to the technical limitations. It's a phone game from the 2000s, but it still really brings the product down. So at first glance, Order of Shadows just seems like a very bad Classicvania, which is made worse by the platform it's on. And yes, that's what it is. But it's also kind of an Igavania. There's a leveling system and an inventory with consumables, main weapons, and sub-weapons. You only start out with the letter whip, but you collect stuff as you go. In certain candles later, you find the axe, the cross, a bunch of different swords which don't feel that good to use, and even Maria Renard's doves, who I haven't talked about yet. On top of that, you've got a world that is actually fully explorable right from the get-go. You just need certain abilities to access certain areas. This game is inspired by both Classicvanias and Igavanias. And when I talk about it like that, it seems very ambitious, doesn't it? Maybe even a bit cool? Could Order of Shadows actually be a hidden gem in the Castlevania franchise? Well, let's take a closer look. The game starts right outside an abandoned mansion located in a meadow in Eternal Night. This, I think, is referencing the forest of Eternal Night from Lament of Innocence, which I personally interpret to not be in Romania, since that was the territory of Walter Bernhard, not Dracula, but alright. The siblings convene at the entrance, having been informed by a friend called Giovanni, and determine that this must be the headquarters of the Order. The two sisters go ahead to seek the inner sanctum, where Rohan is hidden, and we take control of Desmond to rid this world of demons. As I said, this game does technically have an open map, so it's not really divided in stages, more so regions, like a Metroidvania, but the game is so linear that it barely makes a difference. The first area is the mansion itself, which is designed a bit like the main halls of the other games. It has zombies and skeletons, and as you can see, the combat is very unengaging. The music is cool. It doesn't sound very Castlevania, but it's passable, I guess. Heading down to the basement and skipping this big eye, we reach some sort of catacomb or mass grave, then climb back out through an open cavern to find our first boss in the forest. Yeah, that was the first area. All of it. I didn't skip anything. That was literally just 5 minutes of gameplay. Isn't it great? And there's barely any challenge too. The controls suck, so you might think that that would make the game difficult, but it really doesn't. The enemies are brainless and very easy to deal with. Much the same can be said for this boss, the Order Knight, whose name I think is self-explanatory. He wields 2 swords and shoots darts or arrows. I honestly don't know. He also jumps backwards. It's barely a boss. I mean, it is hard to dodge him because of how this game works, but as long as you spam the whip input, you should be able to beat him, even if you take a ton of damage. There's no secret to it. For beating the boss, you unlock the backdash. Is the backdash useful? No. Okay, it might be. There's some enemies you want to keep away from, but it's clunky. You have to press down and then back in the arrow keys. So most times it wasn't worth using because it just confused my poor brain. In the region right after, a rendition of Bloody Tears plays as we traverse what I think is the ruins of an aqueduct. There's 2 paths, one down, one up, and going down is an option, but you won't be able to progress without the slide ability. So you need to go up the ruins until you climb the Bat's Belfry. The stairs are really annoying in this game, by the way. The jump button and the climb button are the same, so you have to position very carefully with the stairs to make sure you're not gonna jump rather than climbing, but otherwise this region is pitiful. Even the bats, which are normally annoying, in this game they move at a very slow pace. The boss by the bell is probably the hardest in the game because there's 2 of it. It's the twin bats. They fly around and shit and spit fireballs. I actually died to them, but this game has infinite lives, so who cares? And then I killed them using this sub-weapon called the Platinum Blade. So after beating this, Desmond gets the slide ability. Yay. He also meets Zoe again, who apparently has not found the Inner Sanctum, but she has found a magic gauntlet. This alchemical gauntlet was hidden away in the Order's mansion, but it was supposedly created by an ancestor of their friend Giovanni, and then given to one of the Belmont's ancestors. So Giovanni's ancestor is implied to be Ronaldo, and the gauntlet is the one he gave to Leon for him to use magic relics. Again, this game is doing cool stuff with the lore, which few of the canon games really did, so I kinda like it, but I don't know, it also feels a bit forced, in my opinion. The gauntlet lets you use alchemy spells, which are consumable abilities that you can find in candles. They're not very useful, especially because they're consumables, and I mean, even sub-weapons in general aren't very useful in this game. They don't do much damage, and their reach is very limited, so you're almost always better off using the whip instead. It's really weird. Oh, and Zoe also tells us she's found a cave just up ahead, so that's where we're meant to go. I backtracked a bit to find this cool flame sword, then went ahead and found another bifurcation. If you walk past the cave entrance, you find a minotaur which utterly destroyed me, so I gave up on that area for a bit. The caverns are populated by Medusa heads, which is foreshadowing the boss, and I like that. You can only enter them by sliding under the stone wall here, and then you never slide again. Okay, you do need to slide to dodge the arrows these fucking skeletons shoot, but it feels so bad to use the slide that I often just take the shot and move on. Anyways, you can also find the flame whip hidden right by the cave entrance, which does a lot of damage and invalidates the sub-weapons even more. So you walk through the caves, and it's kinda boring. There's like a harpy here, which is the toughest enemy in the area, and then the underground Medusa temple. I thought she was gonna be just the head, but no, it's the body. And she has a sword and summons Medusa heads and shit, and her paralyzing gaze can get pretty spammy and annoying. It's a cool take. By the way, you can see Haunted Castle Simon Belmont in the background, petrified. But the boss is still absurdly easy. I had less than half health, and I beat her just attacking like a lunatic. She grants Desmond his last skill, the double jump, which will let him enter the Inner Sanctum. Kind of weird, isn't it? Like, why is Desmond even gaining these powers? Why does he get a double jump from killing the Medusa? Legends had a similar thing with Sonya getting nonsense abilities out of killing bosses, but at least that was explained in the story by her having mystical powers. Desmond has none of those. Why did he need to kill the Medusa, and why does that make him jump twice? I'm asking too much, I know. In the vein of the other abilities, the double jump feels really shit. It adds barely any height for some reason, and it's slow. I don't fucking know. The game teleports you outside the cave so you can go straight back to the Minotaur, die once, and then just barely kill him. I tried using a fire spell I had on him, it was totally useless. But I climbed up to meet the sisters again. You made it. Yeah, Just barely. Just barely my ass. This game is so fucking easy. What are you talking about? I guess it might have been a bit hard if I was on a Nokia screen. Who knows? So they tell us to go into the sanctum and stop Rohan's ritual, and then they head back to the mansion to look for something? What do these two even do? Are they like sorcerers? Wizards? Do they have any abilities or skills? Because they've kind of just walked around so far. Well, let's go on and... After almost dying twice to this Minotaur, I explored the inner sanctum. And I really don't know what it's supposed to be, honestly. It's really big and open, built I think with bricks. It has these giant armor enemies, and it ends on a gauntlet of minotaurs and giant spectral skulls. They do a truckload of damage for every hit, but as long as you keep your distance and don't get cocky, they're really easy to deal with. And again, the whip is always the best option. I tried the sub-weapons out, but they don't do enough damage to be worth it. And a lot of them are very similar, they're just different types of sword. In a candlelit room, we meet Rohan Cross, who taunts Desmond for looking like his deceased father, and for seeking revenge against him. But that's not what Desmond's there for. No, he's there to fulfill his duty and to fight the forces of Dracula. Rohan uses alchemical powers like lightning, which I used against him, and frost bolts and this cloaking thing, none of which does much. In a very anticlimactic fashion, we easily beat him and so dismantled the Order entirely. But even as he draws his last breaths, Rohan mocks. He may not live to see the glory, but the blood sacrifice is complete. The Lord of Vampires has returned. Let's ignore how absurd the idea of Rohan Cross's blood, some fucking nobody who you've never heard of, being able to resurrect Dracula is. Let's ignore that, okay? And he tells us to head to Castlevania and see for ourselves. What? Is Castlevania... is the demon castle just standing somewhere? Doesn't it crumble every time Dracula dies? When did it get here? Anyways, we're immediately teleported there and has this organ music playing. It's totally empty, I think to build the atmosphere. Rohan drops the vampire killer, which he likely stole from Desmond's dad. Or maybe Desmond already had it and it just evolved after he beat Rohan. Either way, we have it now in its final form, which in this game looks like a lightning whip. So we're ready. After stacking up a bit on healing items and alchemical spells, we climb the stairs to meet Dracula, though there's no moonlit sky in this iteration. What a fucking sin.
And Kratos cast himself from the highest mountain in all of Greece.
Dracula's sprite here seems to be ripped straight from Rondo of Blood, and it's really funny because he's tall but also kinda slim, like an anime character, and it completely contrasts with the sprite of Desmond, who looks built like a fucking truck in comparison. So Dracula spouts some generic evil shit that doesn't actually mean anything, then he teleports around and uses some spells. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the final boss. And as you can tell, it does not get any more interesting. There's a fire pillar, like in Castlevania 3, and fireballs, and then he falls, and the sisters get here, and there will always be a Belmont waiting to send you back to hell. Holy shit, did Desmond execute Dracula? Like, it didn't just kill him, that was a coup de grace. He was on the ground. Poor man. And now he's fucking gone. Well, the trio mutually decides to leave the castle, having reached their world-saving goals, but when Desmond returns to it days later, he finds that it remains fully intact. Why does it? That's not how the castle works? But alright, other than that mystery, which we'll never get an answer for, I think that's pretty much Order of Shadows. You have unlocked hard mode. You have also unlocked hard mode from the main menu. Navigate to the options menu. Alright, so, verdict on Order of Shadows. Is it ambitious? Maybe for a phone game it is. I don't want to hate too much on it precisely for this reason, because it's a fucking phone game. But you know, I don't think it does anything special really. Should you play it? No. If you do, you probably won't regret it. This game is like half an hour long and very easy, even with the bad controls. So it's like, whatever. I don't think I regret playing it personally. It was a cool experience, but I'm probably not getting back to it. It's really simplistic and has no replay value whatsoever, especially nowadays. I don't think I need to explain why this game is considered non-canon. And that's all I have to say. Kinda short video. Since I'm already here talking about a shitty mobile Castlevania game, I guess I can mention some of the other ones. I've previously discussed how Castlevania 1 had many ports for home computers, one of which was Vampire Killer, which was actually quite different from the original, but it's also had many mobile ports for early cell phones. The first one we know of is from 2002, and this one is unfortunately lost media. We've only got screenshots to go by, and as you can see, it looks really rudimentary, even more so than the Game Boy games did. Konami released a second version in 2003, which is partially preserved. This one looks much better, though still isn't quite on the NES level. This game was originally split in 3 different files for storage reasons, and only 2 of the 3 files have been preserved. So as of this recording, the last third of this port is lost media as well. There's also an alternate version of this version with different resolution, but for this one, only the first third of the game is preserved. Finally, the last mobile version of Castlevania 1 came out in 2004, I think only in Asia. This one is fully preserved, it has some weird graphics and sprites. I'm playing the Chinese version here on an emulator. It's alright for a phone, possibly better than Order of Shadows since of course this is a port of a game that's actually really good. But I obviously would not recommend you play this or the previous one. These are all greatly inferior versions of Castlevania 1, even the computer ports were better. I didn't play any of these ports to completion, so I guess I can't give a fully informed opinion on them, but I mean, much like the computer ports, these don't really change much save for graphics and controls, so I don't feel like covering them fully. Maybe I'll make a full Castlevania 1 marathon someday, just go through all the shitty versions, who knows. Speaking of which, there's also a GBA port, but this one is pretty faithful, save for screen size. And apparently a Windows port too, like an old Windows port, according to the Castlevania wiki, but I didn't find any info on it. And finally, there's the more recent port for Steam and modern consoles through the Anniversary Collection. This one is like 100% faithful, as far as I know, no comments. And I think that's effectively all the versions of Castlevania 1 mentioned on this channel. The original for the Famicom and then the NES version is technically different because that has no save system. The 3 computer ports, 4 if the Windows one actually existed, 5 if you count Vampire Killer, even though it's a bit of a different game. Then the 4 Java-based mobile ports, 3 of which are lost media or partially lost media, and the GBA port. On top of those, you could add the games that serve as remakes or reboots to the story of Castlevania 1. That's 3 more, and one of those has its own slightly different port, and another its own remake. That's a total of 17 different ways to experience the story of Simon Belmont, 18 if you count the Anniversary Collection. And then you move on to Castlevania 2 for the sequel, which doesn't have any major ports in contrast. It's also on the Anniversary Collection, and there might be an older Windows port, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, lots of games. Maybe I could go on to the Simon Marathon someday, just to get through all of it. No promises though. There's also a Java mobile port of Castlevania 3 from 2006, which is lost media, and ports of Aria and Dawn, which are preserved, but I haven't talked about them yet, so let's leave it at that. That's it. Bye.